Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome. It is episode number 97 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm your host, Catherine Erdley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. And before we get into today's episode, I'd love to invite you to go to resilientretailclub.com/grow2022. That's grow 2022. And sign up for my free workshop, which is happening on the 29th of June at 11 a.m. UK time, where I'm going to be talking all about what's happening this year in retail, answer your questions and talk you through what you need to know and, more importantly, what you need to do in your business to help, let's face it, navigate the choppy waters of 2022. So that's resilientretailclub.com/grow2022 for your opportunity to join me for my free online workshop on the 29th of June. So on to today's episode. Today, I'm joined by e-commerce veteran Simon Belsham. Simon has a huge amount of experience in the e-commerce realm, having worked in numerous different places from Tesco.com and so on and so forth for many years, and has now decided to partner with some really big names in the industry to start the Healing Company, which is all revolving around our need to focus healthcare away from illness and onto wellness. Simon has a wealth of history, and I'm sure you're going to love hearing his perspective on e-commerce right now. Simon, thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to just start off by hearing more about you and about the Healing Company.
Yeah, of course. Well, Catherine, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat to you about all things health and healing today. Yeah, just as a quick way of introduction to myself, my name is Simon. Like all of us, I have many jobs and roles and titles in life. I'm a father. Very new title for me. I'm very proud to have it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So if you hear him crying in the background, that's why. I thought I'd just get that out there. I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a Brit living in New York. I'm an avid traveler, and I'm deeply passionate about all things health and wellness, and we can get more into that. You know, a key tenet of the Healing Company, and I'll talk a bit more about that, is to really understand people's individual stories. We believe that this is the future of healthcare, that it's about our lifestyles and our behaviors that predict so much of the diseases that people are at risk for, and that's what we're looking to help prevent with the Healing Company. And so much of that comes from my professional experience too, and so I've spent the last 20 plus years leading and building e-commerce companies and working with incredible entrepreneurs. I ran Tesco.com globally for a number of years. I was involved in Ocado in the early days. I led Not on the High Street. I moved to the US to run Jet.com after the Walmart acquisition, and recently built out the digital business, the fitness business for Equinox and SoulCycle here in New York. You can define my interest as this intersection between technology and people, particularly consumers. And ever since I was a kid, I've been curious about why people do what they do. And we're a fascinating species as humans at times in understanding our motivations. And really, one of my early mentors in my career, Sir Terry Leahy, when he was the CEO of Tesco for many years, used to describe retail as anthropology or ethnography by another name. And that's really what's always drawn me to retail and so much of what we do. It's, ultimately we're selling people products or services that they want and need that are going to have a benefit in their lives. And the only way we can do that is by really understanding people's lives and how they live their lives and what matters to them. That consumer centricity has always been part of retail, and is now, being adopted by other industries, education, entertainment, and particularly healthcare. And that's what's really driving the interest and the opportunity that we have with the Healing Company today. Frankly, there's no better need or greater need than helping people live healthier lives and live a higher quality of life.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I can tell we're going to have a fascinating chat, because I have to say that is my favourite thing about retail as well, is that for me, what always strikes me as so incredible is that as individuals, we all feel like we're making personal decisions about things, about purchases that we make when we make them, and yet you can see patterns. So even though you're making an individual decision, you're part of a big shift, whether it's the timing that people buy their Valentine's Day cards, depending on which day of the week Valentine's Day falls on, and from everything else. That's such a great description, that, anthropology by a different name. What fantastic quotes. So I'm really excited to hear more. Then the Healing Company, then obviously you've got a huge background in e-commerce, which is great, because I've got lots of questions about that too. But I'd love to hear more specifically about the Healing Company. So it's obviously focusing on healthcare and wellness. You've got big name, significant funding, and obviously a big vision for what you want to do with the company.
Yeah, we do. As you were saying, Catherine, so much of it is about, understanding what we do in our daily lives every day. Our vision for the business is to bring integrated healing to the world. It's a very big vision, but we have a simple goal within that. And our goal is to improve the quality of life for millions of people. At the end of the day, we believe that for most people, there are really only two things that matter: quantity of life and quality of life. And we believe in health span over lifespan. Having more years of healthy quality of life, it matters more than actually just living more years in sickness. And the average person today spends almost, particularly in the Western world, spends almost a quarter of their life in poor health. The healthy life expectancy in the US today is 66.1 years, and that's actually declined in recent years despite massive increases in health spending. And we've all got our own personal stories of getting to this point and how we live our lives and the stresses and things that we have going on every day. And by understanding that and making a difference to that, we believe we can prevent disease and change the paradigm of healthcare. And that's really what we're looking to do with the Healing Company, and where we believe through science and technology and some of the advances there, now is the time, as we emerge from the pandemic, to really make a very big difference.
So talk me through a little bit about, sorry, just before I go on, I just wanted to drop in, because I actually lived in the US for 6 years, and I do think it's fascinating, the US approach to healthcare, which is very much about treating symptoms. And if it's something that you can give somebody a medication for, then they would rather. So if someone has acid reflux, they're going to give them the acid reflux medication instead of asking them what it is that they're eating. So I totally get where you're coming from, and I think it's very fascinating distinction that you made there between lifespan and healthy lifespan. So I guess what I'd just love to understand more is that, so what's the experience going to be like as a customer? So if I'm, on the healingcompany.com, then what's the proposition for the customer when they're interacting with the company?
The goal of the Healing Company is in helping people live a better quality of life. It's to build a community of brands that can really make a difference. I think one of the challenges for consumers today is that, they don't necessarily know what's right for them. And even if they have an idea, there's not necessarily real trust in the solutions that are out there. And so what we're looking to do is to find great businesses that we believe have real potential, real healing potential, that can make a difference to people, have real credibility in their product and real storytelling potential. And so we can help people understand what matters for them. And, that's bringing the decades of experience we have in the commerce world and the consumer world, and bringing that to healthcare. A lot's been talked about around this sort of idea of the consumerization of healthcare in recent years. Maybe we can talk a bit more about that, because I think that's really very much at the heart of why we believe there's an opportunity. I think what you just said, Catherine, and where you started is so true. When I moved to the US 4 years ago, the healthcare system was one of the biggest differences and challenges for me personally in trying to understand what that means. And having come from a nationalized system to a private system, there's not, neither is perfect, frankly. And I think there's opportunities all over the place, everywhere in the world, to improve this. But, even within the US particularly, almost 20% of GDP is spent on healthcare, and yet 95% of that spend is on treating sickness. It's a sick care system, not a healthcare system as we have it today. And really what we want to do is find great entrepreneurs, great businesses that can make a difference, help people live healthier lives and prevent disease.
So is the vision then that you're bringing together different businesses with different propositions, but they're going to be sitting together under the Healing Company so that you're effectively building that trust, that relationship? Me as a consumer, I would come to understand trust and listen to what the Healing Company is offering, and therefore be able to come to you for a wide variety of solutions. Is that the kind of crux of it?
Yeah. Ultimately, that is. I mean, I think there's a number of different paths to that. So, we want to help brands that we find and work with have individual impact and accelerate what they're doing today. They've got to have a great credibility behind them, but we want to help them tell their story better and reach people better. It's one of the hardest things in the consumer world is understanding how to navigate all the changes in marketing and technology and communication and social media. And we've got a lot of experience that. We bring people like Steve Bartlett, who you'll know out the UK, Dragon's Den, and founder of Social Chain. He's an investor in the business. He's on our board. Probably one of the leading people in the country, in Europe right now at telling stories and helping connect with people, and also very personally passionate about healthcare. So we're very fortunate to have people like Stephen on board. And then at the other end of the spectrum, Dr. Deepak Chopra here in the US is our chief scientific advisor. He spent his whole career, he started out as an endocrinologist, as a traditional doctor, but has spent his whole career really helping people understand how more ancient forms of wisdom and alternative approaches to healing can complement medicine and really make a difference. And so bringing those people and those resources and those teams, we think we can help founders and entrepreneurs and businesses themselves have individual impact. And then over time, we want to start to bring these together, and the Healing Company will serve to join the dots and bring these solutions together for people so that it makes more sense and is complementary. And I think, using technology in the way that e-commerce technology and platforms and communication platforms have evolved, I think we've got an opportunity to really do that. And then the one other thing that I would say is, I think one of the other drivers for this change right now is, at the heart of so much of this is we have a greater understanding of ourselves today than we ever did before. We're all wearing, multiple devices probably that tell us so much about ourselves. I think I recently read a report that almost 50% of people wear a wearable every day. I mean, particularly coming out of the pandemic, we've got so much more in tune with our own biology, our physiology. We're able to monitor things like heart rate variability and, even things like blood pressure and, are becoming much more commonplace. And being able to understand that will then be able to tell us if we're on the path to issues. And so we can personalize those experiences to us as individuals much more. And that is empowering people to take control of their health. So helping people understand and navigate this world is really what we're trying to do with the team that we've put together and the expertise that we bring.
Fantastic. So it's sort of personal path to wellness as opposed to the focus on, as you said, a sick care system.
Yeah.
I'd love to bring it back to you. You've mentioned the concept of storytelling a few times now, and of course that's one of the major shifts. But you've got this incredible background in e-commerce, and you've been in it for over 2 decades. So you've seen it shift enormously. Do you feel like storytelling is almost the biggest shift, or what else would you say kind of categorizes the trajectory that you've seen e-commerce go on? And that's a big question.
It's such an important question because e-commerce and retail is such a big part of our lives. And actually, I think there are so many things that have changed. I'd probably start by saying at the heart of retail, what hasn't changed is where I was saying is this need to really understand people and their lives and what makes a difference to them and what their needs and their wants. And so within that, probably the biggest thing that's changed over time is how people live their lives. I think, when I started my career, there was no social media, mobile phones were in the infancy. I'm just dating and aging myself at this point. Anyway, there we go. And we didn't have access to the same technology. I know when I was first working on Tesco.com, we were having to build every widget and web page ourselves. Today, you can get so much of that out the box in a way that's more powerful and better than it was, when we built it ourselves 20 years ago. Technology has commoditized in many ways the platforms that it takes to build an e-com business. But in doing that, what it's done is it's liberated so many more people to bring products directly to consumers. And we've seen this rise in direct-to-consumer retail in recent years. And, entrepreneurs and people with a great idea and real creativity being able to bring products to people directly, whereas they would have needed technology skills and other things years before to do that. And so I think what it's enabled is it's empowered people and, with more creativity, more that ability to connect via storytelling rather than just purely technology. And I think that's probably one of the biggest changes and biggest opportunities that we see in this space. At the same time, bringing together experience as well as products. Since the days of Harry Selfridge, experience has always been a part of retail. But even more so now, when you're able to connect the dots through physical and digital and really immerse yourself in people's lives, we're so omnipresent with technology now, with mobile phones in our pockets and, constantly connected via social media, that ability to be immersive and contextual at the right time for people when their motivation is there, when the need is there, is super, super important. And so I think these are the challenges and therefore the different skills that we need as in a consumer tech world to connect with people. I also think it's hard to delineate what is retail and what is media and what is education, because the boundaries between all of these things have blurred and changed so much over the years as well. I think retail, media, entertainment are kind of all integrated now. It's why we see Instagram and Meta and others getting into retail and TikTok and, Netflix and, everyone is trying to do the same thing in terms of actually connecting with people, provide entertainment and provide solutions to their lives. And so we have to change our mindset as well about how we approach that. But I think it goes back to understanding customers' needs and issues and then building from there.
Yeah, that's such I think you summed it up so perfectly. But bringing it back to the fact that it's always down to the customer. If ever in doubt, start with the customer. And that's not changed. It's just how we reach out to them and serve them has shifted dramatically. As you said, that technology, and I agree. I think that's the most exciting part, is that the technology has allowed access to so many people that in the early days of e-commerce, can you imagine a small business shelling out for someone to build them a website unless they had seriously deep pockets?
Yeah. And you hit on a really good point there, a really important point as well, Catherine, this kind of idea of access. I think it's liberating for so many people. And if we can take those same principles of retail, those consumer-centric principles, and apply them to education, or in our case, into healthcare, you can help make a difference to so many more people's lives. And I think through the pandemic, we've all been forced to adopt new technologies, telehealth and, at-home testing and diagnostics. Actually, if we take those beyond the pandemic, beyond COVID-19, and actually think about all the other aspects of our life and wellness, and then you're able to personalize solutions off the back of that, you can start to see we can really move the needle and actually and how healthy people are. And a lot of the science that's coming out of places like Harvard now around really understanding that it's not our genetics that predispose us to disease. It's about our lifestyles and the environment and our behaviors that actually are the things that drive so many diseases and dementias and cancers and autoimmune issues and so many things, even fertility and and other things that we sort of have attributed to kind of more genetics in the past. We understand now that our lifestyles contribute so much to those. And so if we can really take some of these principles of understanding consumer-centric businesses and apply them to healthcare, then this idea of a disease-free world is not unrealistic, within our lifetimes. And you think about the dividends that comes from a disease-free world and how much you empower people that aren't able to do things today because they don't have access to healthcare, then for me, that is a huge and really motivating mission.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can definitely see that. So you would definitely see this as definitely complementary treatments as opposed to, I know there's that distinction between alternative treatments and complementary. So it's very much working with the existing healthcare system, but to build it out to preventative measures rather than focusing on treatment.
Yeah, I really do. I really think it's about the convergence of, modern medicine and more traditional approaches to healing. The business was founded very much on this idea that it's about the complement of the two coming together. In fact, the inspiration for the business really came from, my co-founder, really the founder of the business, a lady called Annabelle Ullman. And I met her last summer, and when I heard her story about her own real lived experiences, it really resonated with me. She was a model traveling the world for a number of years. She was living in LA at the time, and she was suffering from all sorts of issues related to weight loss and weight management and the stress of the job and the lifestyle and the constant travel. Traditional healthcare played a role in that, but a lot of the prescription medicines that she was taking at the time were making her feel bad. And so she was forced to find more natural approaches to healthcare that really complemented that. And for her, CBD was something she discovered that helped manage her stress and anxiety and some of the migraine issues she was having. And she went on to start a supplement business. And that very much was the inspiration behind what we're doing, and delighted to be growing the business with Annabelle today. Every one of us has our story about how it's the combination of these things that come together. And we really believe it's an and story. It's not an either or.
Right.
So much of the world that we live in is we're forced to make choices, whereas actually we believe, it's about both. And we wouldn't be out of the pandemic if it wasn't for the amazing science
Yes.
in modern medicine with, the vaccines and the rapid pace of development. But equally, we've got to think of our own immunity and how we, maintain that resilience and things as we go forward. So, very much our view is it's about the convergence of the two things.
On a very practical note, I had another question that I thought of while you were speaking, and that was about, again, going back to your experience in e-commerce, that it's really about this idea, or one of the things that gets talked about a lot in the last, or even maybe even the last 6 months, has been this shift around acquisition, how you acquire new customers, how it's often perceived by a lot of people as more challenging. We've got challenges around things like if people are heavily reliant on paid advertising. So with that in mind, and going back to the idea of the kind of community and storytelling and the connection element of the business, does that impact how you think about growing the business when you think about acquisition versus perhaps loyalty or keeping customers for longer, or growing your relationship with customers?
Yeah, I think one of the things that hasn't changed, or has actually probably become even more important over recent years, is that people trust their first and second degree connections, for advice more than they almost ever have done before. I think influencers and some of the creators and celebrities will always play a role in connecting with people. And I think as we think about the channels that we connect with people on, I think those become important, are still important. But even more important are the people that we know or sort of know secondhand, and their recommendations. And we've seen the rise of some of the dark social communities, and dark in the sense of like kind of their more closed groups. So Discord and Reddit and WhatsApp groups, those become just as important channels for communicating and connecting with people and building that community of shared experience around. And we see so many places that community of first and secondary connections becomes really, really important in that consideration cycle and that commerce experience. And so that's exactly the same, and is so true here. My wife and I recently, as I said, we just had a child. As older parents coming into this world, we had a number of fertility issues coming into this, and the way that we got through and understood the things that made a difference for us. And so much of this is about, non-traditional medicine, because through the fertility cycle, so much of it is about wellness in our body and our diet and nutrition and stress management and everything. Nearly all of our advice came from the communities that we connected with, and understanding which supplements to take and how to manage our diet, and all of that just came from people that we knew and trusted. And so from personal first-hand experience, I can tell you that despite the fact that there are privacy changes and things, the fundamentals of how we connect and how we trust are still relevant. Navigating that is hard for a small business, and that's where we want to help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating conversation. I can't wait to see how this all develops. Do you want to just tell us briefly a little bit more about how people can find out more about the Healing Company?
Of course. So go to the website, healingcompany.com. Follow us on social media at @theheal_co. We're across all social media channels. and then reach out, DM if you want to learn more about working with us as a brand or as an individual. We'd love to hear from you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, I hope you will head over to iTunes and give us a rating, preferably a review. I absolutely love to see the reviews and ratings, and I appreciate every single one of them. Also, on Spotify, you can rate the podcast in the app. And of course, if you hit subscribe or follow, you'll be the first to know about each new episode. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.